Hey friends, welcome to my deck, and today we're going to do a wrap up of every book I read in January. I believe it's 21 books. Quickly, I'm going to put a couple of statistics over here about my reading this month, and I will just start off with my top read of the month, which was Playing Flirty by Shamiz Patel. This was probably the best nerdy rom-com I've ever read. It was an absolute delight. It was funny, it was sweet, it was relatable, it was like normal characters with like relatively normal jobs, which is like a delight to read instead of all these like rich people who are hard to relate to for me. And I thought it was absolutely stunning. So now let's go through book by book, and I have this really cute reading list bookmark that I got from our local indie bookstore. I actually filled out the whole thing this month, so I'm gonna get 11 or 12 more so that I can do this every month, and then I will probably use my laminator to laminate them and have them as like a forever bookmark. Okay, so I started the month with Serving Up Hex by Tara Lush. This series is one of my all-time favorite series. It is relatable. Our MMC is like premenopausal, so there's also like that like wisdom that comes with just being a little bit older and like realistic expectations, and she really highly values female friendship within her coven. And one of my favorite things is that there is a romance, but it is like so like tertiary to her story, which is such a relief. This specific book, Serving Up Hex, starts out with two members of the coven at a pickleball match, and this jerk on the other side, like on the other team, drops dead. And that's where it starts. I highly recommend this, and Tara is like such a delightful person, so I'm really honored to be able to like support her through her work as well. Next, I read A Sea of Unspoken Things. I was so honored to receive a PR package with this, so not only did I get a beautiful hardcover book that I absolutely loved, I also got a candle and a leather bookmark. But A Sea of Unspoken Things follows a woman whose twin died in their hometown, and she's trying to make sure that there was no foul play involved. I'm not usually like a mystery thriller kind of person, but Adrienne Young does such a good job of just adding like a little bit of magic. So I really enjoyed like the twin connection, but also the way the story unraveled was absolutely captivating. I then read Wooing the Witch Queen, which comes out this month in February. This is what I think romantasy should be. It did not take itself too seriously. It was fun. The plot was exciting. The characters were lovable. I adored Wooing the Witch Queen, and I cannot wait to continue with the series. I also continued reading the Red Queen series, so I read The Glass Sword and The King's Cage. I'll be honest, I really loved The Glass Sword. I thought King's Cage was a little longer than I needed it to be, but I am still really interested in this story, and I think it does a really good job of drawing some modern parallels to the oppression we see in society today. Got a recommendation on TikTok for The Blue Book of Nebo as a dystopian read, and it is a novella, and it was so interesting. I would say it's more lit fic than dystopian, but I don't even know what I took away from this other than like it was really fascinating. It follows a woman and her son after like a climate apocalypse, living in their house and learning to be self-sufficient. And one of like the mysteries at the beginning is that she has a child who was conceived after the start of the apocalypse, so that's like an interesting thing to track. But in general, I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it, even though I don't know if I fully understood it. Still would recommend. Then I read The Empress, which is another romantasy. This is okay as long as you're not thinking too hard. It wasn't my favorite read by any means. I didn't hate it, but I don't know how many folks I would recommend it to. Then I was thrilled to read another one of Chloe Lisa's books. If you haven't read them, she wrote the Bergman Brothers series, and I love those books. So I was able to receive an e-arc of Once Smitten, Twice Shy, which is just like giggle, kick your feet romance. It was so funny. It was so smart. It was really beautiful, and it also had great disability rep like Chloe Lisa's other books. It has one character with chronic illness, and another character on the autism spectrum, and I thought both of those cases were presented really well and very honestly. I am teaching a Hunger Games class and running a Hunger Games book club, so I did read both Hunger Games and Catching Fire this month. If you're super fascinated by that idea, you are welcome to join my Hunger Games book club. We have a Discord and we meet every other Monday. We are now starting Mockingjay, so if you do want to hop in, I would do it pretty soon. I did get an e-arc from Berkeley, so I read Murder in the Dressing Room, which was okay. I was excited because it featured like drag performers, but I felt like it was a lot more murder mystery and less drag and drag culture than I was hoping for, but it was still a great read, and I never saw the plot twist coming. I was delighted to read Brewed in Love, I think with love. And this is like a YA murder, not really murder, but like a YA mystery, and it was beautiful. I love the witches, I love the love interest, I thought the writing was phenomenal. So whether you are an adult who will read YA, which I don't see why not, or if you have a young person in your life who's really interested in magic and maybe just a teensy bit of romance that is totally age appropriate for any teen, I would pass this book along to them. I finally got my Libby hold for Dinner for Vampires, which was wild. I'm pretty sure I listened to it in like a day, like within 24 hours, because I was so captivated by this story of like being in a cult while being on a cult TV show, but also by the way that Bethany really seamlessly explains like how she interpreted things at the time and how she understands them to actually be now, and I thought it was done phenomenally. If you're interested in cults, if you're interested in celebrity memoirs, or you're just a memoir reader in general, Dinner for Vampires is an absolute must. If you are looking for something cozy, sweet, and slice of life, I would highly recommend the Baby Dragon Cafe. There is not an immense amount of plot, to be honest, and I did not care at all. I wanted to watch Sparky, this sassy little baby dragon, wreak havoc. I loved him, and I had so much fun reading this, and I think either in February or March the sequel comes out, and I cannot wait to read that one either. So if you are a person who is really into slice of life, really into cozy fantasy, pick this up immediately. Probably my lowest rated book of the month was This Is the Year, and I just want to be really clear that I don't think this is a bad book. I personally just don't really like reading stream of consciousness writing, especially when it's from the perspective of a teenager. It did not vibe with me. I also thought that the book would be a lot more focused on climate change and climate justice, and she kind of just like casually mentions that things are like completely flooded and underwater and that they can't use certain things, and it was a lot more focused on her joining this like space exploration program, which was interesting, and I think if I knew more of what I was getting into before I started it, I would have enjoyed it more than I did. I adore Rebecca Thorne, and I love her Tomes and Tea series, so I got to read an early copy of Tea You at the Altar, and I loved it. It was so cute. It was so fun. They were so badass. They have like the most healthy lesbian relationship that I've ever read in any book, fantasy or not. And the cast of characters just keeps getting better and better with literally every single book. I loved it, and I am going to be groveling to Bramble to try to get the last book in the series early as well, because I just think if any author were to ever write a book just for me, it would be this series. It's perfect to me. I have no complaints, and I loved it. I did read 2 like 6-star romances. I already told you about Playing Flirty, which was out of this world good, and just like a can't even see it tiny notch below, I would place Give Me Butterflies, which I adored. The romance in this one made me giddy. It was so cute, and we've got 2 folks who work at a museum, one with stars, one with bugs, and they accidentally fall in love, and he happens to be raising his sister's 2 children because she has passed away, and the way that he cares for those children and the way that he cares for a female main character, just absolute perfection. It's perfect. I have no notes. I loved it from beginning to end. I will warn you, if discussions or scenes with a narcissistic ex might trigger you, that, just be warned that that might be coming. I did read Onyx Storm. I thought it was fine. I thought it was better than Iron Flame, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue the series. I'm just not as invested as I was after Fourth Wing, and I was less invested than most other people, so it happened. I read it quickly because I didn't want it to get spoiled, but it is what it is. I finally read The Gracier. I had been putting it off forever because it was from Wednesday Press, and I was interested in it while we were boycotting St. Martin's Press, but now that the boycott has ended, I finally read my copy, and it was so good. If you are interested in a little bit of female rage, this could be great. And this book did two things that I thought were really phenomenal. First, if you haven't heard of it, it takes place in a society where 16-year-old girls are first chosen by single men in the village to be their wives without any consent from these girls. And then at the age of 16, they are all sent off into the woods to fend for themselves and try to survive because they allegedly have magic that will make men crazy and bend to their will. And so they have to go use up all their magic. And it just sounds to me like these men are a bunch of pedophiles who are interested in 16-year-old girls, because most of the men are not 16-year-old boys. And they kind of unpack that. But the two things that I thought were super well done is that first, we feel empathy for these women and want justice for these women, even if they are annoying and we don't like them. And I think right now it is so important to remember that you don't have to like someone for them to have them to have rights. And also I think it does a really good job of showing what happens when women stand strong together, and what happens when we don't, and we allow men to control the way that we see other women. So I would recommend this, but be warned, there are some really gory moments. I also read Zoe Brennan, First Crush. This is the sequel to Hannah Tate Beyond Repair, and I liked Hannah Tate a little bit better, but I really think that it is just because in Zoe Brennan, First Crush, one, it is set at a winery, and I don't even really drink and just really didn't have a lot of interest in the setting. But I found myself to be frustrated with the main character a lot. She improved over the book, but she pretty quickly finds out that her dad needs to move to Italy to take care of his dying mother, and one of her first thoughts is but what about the business? And that just kind of pissed me off, and I held a grudge against her for a while, but I still think that this is a book that a lot of people could enjoy, and I thought that the spicy scenes in this sapphic romance were pretty good. So, if you're listening to audio, you probably don't want to listen with it out loud around your kids, but that part really knocked it right out of the park. And the last read I want to talk to you about is Family Style. This is a story of an immigrant's life through food, and I thought it was absolutely stunning, especially as we are talking about building empathy for immigrants around us in our country right now. I thought that this did a really good job of doing that in a way that felt really honest to the immigrant experience, but also was just very endearing and sweet and relatable, and I would highly recommend it. So my top read of the month was Playing Flirty. I cannot more highly recommend that you read it. My lowest rated read of the month was This Is the Year, but I still don't think it was bad. I just think I'm not the reader. And I have lots of great reads on deck for February. So if you want to know more about any of these books, or you've read them and love them, tell me about it in the comments.